Hi friends, welcome to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Caitlin. For those of you that are not new here, my face is happy that you are seeing it again. And today we are doing my November eyeshadow palette rankings. Hopefully I will edit and get this up earlier than I did last month. So one thing that I do with my rankings, I did get this idea from Karen Harris. I will try to remember to link her channel down below, but she is amazing. But she does her eyeshadow palette rankings doing new palettes that she's purchased as well as just other palettes that she reached for during the month. I like doing my rankings that way because I think it's fun to see, like, yes, the new stuff that I've tried and, you know, gotten some use out of, but also, you know, things that maybe I purchased a couple months ago, like, am I still reaching for them? Do I still like them? Or palettes from years ago that maybe some of you already have. Do these new palettes, are they better than what we already have, or no? Are we good with what we have and we don't need all the new stuff? You know what I mean? So if that's something you're interested in, then you should go ahead and keep on watching. Okay, I just wanted to hop back on here and say that I know my hair looks greasy. That's because I'm trying to go longer without putting dry shampoo in it, because I feel like my hair is producing more oil than it really needs to. So yeah, so that's why if you're watching this and you're like, maybe put some dry shampoo or wash your hair, that's the reason. Okay, so if I counted correctly, which is questionable, I believe there's 17 palettes? 17, there's 17. Okay, so number 17, and I did do my little note cards again. Anyways, number 17 is the Wild, I think it's like the Wild Tiger Obsession, Wild Obsessions Tiger Palette, something like that, from Huda Beauty. Oh my god, I'm making a mess over here. Okay, here's what that palette looks like. Yeah, so this one, it's similar to the other Wild Obsessions. Love the packaging. Longevity is fine, no really issues there. These are pretty affordable palettes as well. It's just the color story isn't my favorite, so that's really why it's down as low as it is. And yeah, that's really it. I don't really find this color story super duper inspiring. The note that is on this next palette fell off somewhere, so that's kind of weird, but okay. Don't know where it went. Oh my gosh, that's so strange. Anyway, the next up is the Brunette Palette from Melt Cosmetics. This color story isn't super inspiring to me. I have been enjoying this palette more lately just because the quality is really, really nice. And when I just want like an easy neutral look, this is the palette that I reach for. I think the tones in it are nice. You have a lot of depth in there. I just wish that there was maybe like a slightly lighter shimmer. Like instead of maybe having both of these lighter shades, I don't know, that maybe that would help the palette out. And then the packaging is the pretty biggest ding on here. So that's really it. It's the packaging in addition to the cost. If this was like a cheap palette with great quality and the packaging wasn't that great, whatever, but this is a very expensive palette. Yes, the quality is nice, but like I would also expect the packaging to be nice because it's, I shouldn't say very expensive, I have more expensive palettes, but it's relatively expensive. Number 15 is my Too Faced Pumpkin Spice palette. So this was Too Faced holiday launch 2020, 2019, I think it was 2020, I can't remember. Anyways, the longevity on this palette is okay. It's not the best, but it's also not the worst. Like, it's very, I don't want to say mediocre, but like average. That's probably the best word to use. It's average. I do like this color story. I do feel like you have quite a few like browns and so I just feel like there was maybe an opportunity. I don't know, actually, I like this color story. I don't know that there's really anything I would change on it, except maybe a green matte. That might help. Packaging I think is nice. Overall, I like this palette. Really the only con I have on it is the longevity. I feel like the mattes start to sort of like blend away and disappear. Again, it's like a year old. I don't know is the open jar on here? 12 months. So if I did get it last year or the year before, it is beyond its expiration technically, so maybe that's why the longevity isn't as good. Next up is number 14. This is the Sigma Beauty Cinderella palette. I think this palette's really nice. I like the shimmers, I like the mattes. I think it has a good color story. Packaging's nice. The only reason it's in this spot is because I like the other palettes in this ranking better than it. But I don't really have a ton of cons, or really any cons with this palette. It's just more of like a like versus a love kind of thing, you know? Next up is the Odin's Eye and Fancy Face collab, the Hummingbird palette. These shimmer shades are just so special. The mattes are great as well. My main issue with these palettes, I've talked about it before, is the texture of the packaging. I'm not a huge fan, but I keep my little cardboard insert and I don't have to touch it. But anyways, the reason that this palette is where this one's at is just because there's more shimmers than mattes, which isn't my favorite. And it's like super bright and colorful, so it's just not a palette that I feel as like in touch with at this time of the year. So next up is actually the Red Dragon palette, which is the collab between Odin's Eye and Judy. This one just gets the nod over the Hummingbird palette because I'm vibing with this color story a little bit more right now. But again, same thing. Mattes, shimmers are great. My only issue is the texture of the packaging, but overall I think this is a really nice color story. I think it's like a really fun neutral with just a couple of pops of color, so that you can do easy neutral looks but also have some excitement in there too. Next up is number 11. This is the first new palette for that we're looking at for the month of November. This is new to me, I should say. This is the Pat McGrath Labs Mothership Mega Celestial Odyssey palette. This is my first, well, technically my second Pat McGrath palette. I have one of her Eye Ecstasy palettes. But yeah, this palette I've only used a few times because it's actually, I think, the newest palette in my collection. I got this at I think I got this Black Friday. I went to Sephora and picked it up. So yeah, overall, I like this palette. I think the longevity is great. I don't have any issues or concerns there. These shimmers are so freaking beautiful. My only qualm with the palette is that I don't feel like the mattes blend that well, and there's not a ton of them, similar to kind of the Hummingbird palette where I said it's like, this is like all shimmers. So you really have like, you just have these like two pinky mattes and then two browns. I don't know, when I pair this palette with other palettes, I like it more, but on its own, I just feel like it's missing something for me and how I do my makeup. Just to clarify, some people want to go all shimmer, and sometimes I do the same thing, and that palette is really nice when I do that, but sometimes I want to be able to pull from mattes. Speaking of all shimmers, the number, I think 11? Yeah, so this is number 10. So this is the Danessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 3 Infinite Light Palette. This is an all shimmer palette, and I think it's considered like, what did they call it? A illuminating eye and face pigment palette, I think. So these are like primarily highlight shades in the middle, and then these are more like the eye shades that is a pressed glitter. Anyways, I love this palette. I'm actually wearing, let's see, Solar Rain right here and Aurora right here on my eyes right now. I think this palette's stunning. My only issue with the palette is the longevity. I don't really have issues with the highlight shades on my face or even as inner corners. The issues are more with like Polaris, Solar Rain, and I think Spacesuit, Martian as well, like maybe. Those shades I feel like disappear like within a couple of hours, or they crease really fast. So I'm not a huge fan. These are like cream or gel, I think, texture shadows, so they don't, you know, they just crease easier, especially because you can see like I have pretty creasy eyelids. So that is my issue with that palette. But now moving on to number 9, we have the Natasha Denona Trio Chrome palette. These are the mattes that I'm wearing. So I have Plutonium in this inner half of my crease, Diatonic in the outer half, deepen that up with Garmin in the outer half, and then in the outer corner took Scrap, and I basically blended those. Oh, and then I have Vertex under my brow. But yeah, I really like this palette. The matte color story I think is really unique and cool, and I think it's really cool that she did put multi-chromes in this palette. This palette is super expensive, so definitely recommend trying to pick it up on sale, but I think the mattes are really nice. These shimmers, these like metallic shades are nice. They're not like compared to the Denona Myricks multi-chromes, which are, those are my two experience with multi-chromes. I don't really buy them other than I think there's some in those Odin size palettes as well. But anyways, these aren't the most powerful shifts. So that's why I wanted to use the Denona Myricks multi-chromes with this palette, because I think the mattes are really nice to complement the multi-chromes. But these are soft. But what's nice about these is similar to like all Natasha Denona shimmers or metallic shades, they don't really pick up texture on the lid as much. Like I feel like they just sit nice and soft. So yeah, so I mean I still like it, but if you want like a bold multi-chrome cut like what I've got right now, like you can kind of see how it shifts. It's like very dramatic. That those multi-chrome shades in the triochrome palette or triochrome palette aren't that. Does that make sense? Number 8, I believe, is the ABH Norvina Volume 5 palette. This is kind of surprising because this palette, I feel like when I first got it was like number 1 for a couple of months. No issues with longevity in this palette. Color story is a beautiful. I love this palette. I really do. I just love some of the other palettes more. I think I'd love this palette more if it was edited down just a little bit. I like big palettes, but I don't know. I've been rating like my Color Trip and Surge palettes pretty high for the last few months, so maybe I do like big palettes and I need to own it. It's just hard with these other color stories I have that have a little bit more variety in them to feel like this palette's color story is better, if that makes sense, because this is very much like a purple and like neutrally purple palette. But I do love it, but it's just kind of big. I don't know. All of my explanations make this next ranking choice so confusing. So this might be a recency bias. Actually, I know what this is. So this is number 7. This is the new Huda Beauty. This is the other new palette, right? Yeah, because the Denona Myricks palette I got in October. So it's Pat McGrath, and then this would be the second new palette for November. So this is the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz palette. So pretty. You guys, if you haven't watched it, I did a full face of makeup reviews. I used this palette in that video, but I love this palette. I've used it more than the one time because I actually had a first impressions review video that died. The audio just went out, so I never posted that. But anyways, I digress. This palette is similar to the Norvina palette in the sense that it's like neutrals and like pinky purple shades, and that's kind of it. But I just feel like these shimmer shades are so interesting and so unique and pretty that it kind of puts it over the Norvina palette. Although I will say that palette does have pretty shimmers, they're just not as like special as these shimmers. These shimmers are stunning. So anyways, that's why that ranking went the way that it did. It could also be a recency bias, I don't know. Next up at number 6 is the Natasha Denona Retro palette. I just love this palette. Like, I love the shimmer shades. I love the mattes. Longevity is amazing. 5 out of 5. Color story is beautiful. I would say that this color... I'm trying to think of how to explain this. The reason that this palette is not higher is you'll see all of the color stories I have ranked, or all of the palettes I have ranked above it have like very unique, colorful color stories, which doesn't mean that this color story is bad. I like this color story, but I didn't feel like this color story is unique enough to put it over the other palettes. Does that make sense? So like quality wise, I love all of these palettes the same. There are differences in quality, but like color story kind of helped edge some out over the others, if that makes sense. That's the only reason this isn't like number 1, but this would be this. Every time I wear this palette, I just feel like so effortlessly beautiful, you know? So number 5 is the Lunar Beauty Moonspell Volume 2, and I've actually mentioned in a previous video that the longevity on these shades isn't as good as some of my other Lunar Beauty palettes, but I love this color story. Yes, it's purple, pink, red, brown, like kind of the same issue. no, it's more exciting than the Norvina Volume 5. I will give myself that credit, but the packaging is so beautiful, and I actually really enjoyed these shimmer shades, and I don't know, I just have fun using this palette. I like having it in my collection, so I just love it. And I think the color story is a little bit more interesting than the Natasha Denona Retro palette, so it edged it out, but like the Natasha Denona Retro palette does have better like quality of shadows, if that makes sense, but it's also more expensive, so that kind of makes sense too. Number 4 is the Lowest Cosmetics Meet Me in the Underworld palette. It's been a minute since I've used this palette and had it in these rankings, but I love this palette. I think it's so beautiful. I love the combination of like these like berry tones and greens, and it's honestly like the perfect fall color story. And I think the story behind the palette is amazing. It's based on Greek mythology, and I like the design of the palette. I think it's stunning. I'm a huge fan of this. I want to reach for it more. I just have too many eyeshadow palettes. Okay, before we get into the top 3, I have a confession to make. They're basically all tied. I stared at them and was like, I could not decide which one I like the best. So it's basically a 3-way tie. I put them in an order just for the sake of this video, but I don't want anyone to feel like they're not tied, because they are. So let me clearly communicate that. So in our tied for first, we have the Blend Bunny Cosmetics Surge palette. If I haven't posted already, which I think it should be going up before this video, I did put a 2 looks video up with this palette just because it's so fun to play with. I wanted to make sure to get another video with it out to you guys. I like this palette. I like this palette a lot. I think the mattes are so beautiful, so easy to blend, like just incredible. Longevity, amazing. Packaging, I put packaging is okay. I mean, there's no mirror, but at the same time that makes the packaging like more recyclable, so that doesn't bug me. But it's just I think I said this before, the packaging isn't like anything special. It's definitely like you're paying for the price of like these amazing eyeshadows, and like that's what you're getting. The price on it is actually good for like the quality of the shadows too, because you're not paying extra for like, you know, luxurious packaging. But what I've said before kind of holds true, especially if you watched my 2 looks video. The shimmers are good. They're not my favorite type of formula though, so yeah, is what it is. And tied for first again, we have the Cash Beauty Color Trip palette. This palette I think has been like riding the #1 spot for like a while. It's a really good palette. I love it. I just love this color story. Yes, it's like really bright and colorful, kind of all over the place, but it inspires me, especially with the water activated liners at the bottom. I just love it. I don't know. I think any palette that gets my creative juices flowing, makes me want to do something fun and unique, is a win in my book, and that's why all 3 of these top palettes are tied for first, because they all do that for me. Number 1 is the last new palette for the month of November. So we had 3 new palettes for November, which I feel like is actually not bad for me. It's not terrible. Anyways, this is the Amore y Mariposas palette from Melt Cosmetics. This is their holiday release. I am a little bit sad at how small the pan size is on this palette, but the longevity of these shadows is amazing. I will put a look on and like look at my face 12 hours later and it looks the exact same. Like, these do not move. And the color story is so inspiring. I really love it. I think the packaging is absolutely beautiful. I know it is cardboard, but just stunning. These butterflies are raised. These hummingbirds on the front and the butterflies are raised. The artwork is beautiful. It is a pretty expensive palette. I think $78 is the cost of it, so that's kind of pricey, but you do get a lot of variety in the shades. And yeah, I mean, I really don't have any complaints quality wise on this palette. I am a huge fan of it. It is like, I don't even know how many months this has been at it, but I feel like the Color Trip and Surge palette, since I got both of them, have been in the #1, #2 spots consistently. Like, this is the first palette that made me feel like more inspired. And the reason that I only have like 17 palettes for this month is because I think I used this palette 7 times in the month of November. So like some of those other palettes I think I doubled up on for looks, but I just reached for that palette so many times last month because I just wanted to keep playing with it. And I think Laura and Dana did beautiful looks with it, so I had to recreate pretty much every look I saw them do, and then I wanted to create my own looks, and every look I see on Instagram of people doing, I'm saving, and I'm probably going to recreate them later, so you'll probably see that palette a lot in the coming months. I love it. So that is all of the palettes that I used in the month of November. Do you have any of these palettes? Do you like them? Do you not like them? Let me know in the comments down below. I love hearing, you know, just kind of like what palettes you guys are into, not into. Even if we disagree, I think that's fun. Also, let me know what your favorite palette is that you're using right now, because maybe I also have it and you'll remind me to reach for it. Anyways, if you're not already, make sure to subscribe. I do these videos each month, and I'm gonna have some other eyeshadow palette related videos coming out soon, so you should definitely hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure to leave a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!